intersection of making art and making money. Hello and welcome to Explore Your Enthusiasm, episode 118 with me, Tar Spiger, and today I'm not alone. I am happy to be talking to knitwear designer and teacher and Starship Captain, Lisa Barnes. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, everybody. So great to be here. I'm so excited.
Yay, welcome. So, how did you get started with your business, with being a knitwear designer and teacher?
My first career was actually working in performing arts management. I worked for off-Broadway theater companies, dance companies, and that was like the first 20 years of my career. And it was when I was working on an off-Broadway show and one of the actresses was knitting backstage that I thought, I really want to get back into knitting. I mean, I knit when I was a child, but, like most kids, things don't stick. So I just kind of retaught myself. And at that point, I just couldn't put it down. And I decided at that point, actually to manufacture a line of dog sweaters because I was working with an actor, Alan Cumming, actually, on, I know.
I love him.
I know. It was like kind of crazy. He had 2 dogs and we were doing a production with him. And I said, can I make your dog sweaters? And of course, because it's Alan, they ended up being like these little theatrical, costumes. A friend of mine mentioned that at a local college, there was a certificate program in pet product design and marketing. And so I decided to do that along with my interest in creating the dog sweaters. And for a couple of years had launched this business where women's cooperatives around the world made hand-knit dog sweaters from alpaca. But I soon realized I actually didn't want to be a manufacturer. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I started teaching at Michael's Craft Stores and the Lion Brand Yarn Studio, and I really realized that was where my passion was. I really wanted to teach. And I'd also been doing some designing, and I realized soon thereafter that if I can design for my teaching, that I could create projects for students to learn from kind of beginning to end. So that's now what my focus has been. Any of the designing I do for the most part is to also teach and having a great time with that. And I've been doing that now for the past, actually it's been a year full time.
Wow.
It's hard to imagine. I'm so excited and I feel so grateful and lucky that I can now do this full time.
That's amazing because I remember we had a conversation, one of our one-on-ones about how you could do more teaching. I can't believe that was a year ago.
I know.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you is because you recently did a collaboration with another Starship Captain and Tudor who is a glassmaker. Now, there are a lot of collaborations on the Starship aboard like yarn makers and designers because obviously like the yarn maker will provide the yarn for the designer to design out of and vice versa,
Right.
But I liked this because it was like a totally different kind of thing and a totally just not even something related to knitting or crochet, and you guys put together a collaboration in a kit. So tell me about that.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is it actually started, I guess, about a year ago. Anne was making these little glass charms because she also does jewelry, and at the time she was doing those as part of her jewelry, and I had asked if I was leading an adventure tour. I do a couple fiber adventure tours every year, and I wanted something to give to my attendees. And I said, hey, I think your glass charms would look really cute as stitch markers. Just stick them on a ring, and they could convert easily to knitting and crochet stitch markers. And so she's like, oh, that's really a great idea. Yeah, I have some. I'll send them to you. And then a few months later, I heard from her. I didn't realize actually she was also a knitter. And so I think it was about 6 months later, she said, you know what? I've actually now started a line of stitch markers. And that really kind of took off for her. And I was just so happy that kind of that collaboration inspired this whole new line for her. And most recently, I have a design that's on the cover of the current issue of Neuro Knitting magazine. It's this shawl, which I'm wearing here. And I'm hosting a knit along, actually, that starts August 8th. And one thing about working on a shawl that has many lace pattern repeats, I really wanted to be able to explain to students and people who were involved in the knit along kind of how to keep track of your pattern repeats. And I thought of Anne, and I'm like, you know what? There aren't that many stitch marker sets that are sold that have 22 stitch markers, enough for, a whole lace shawl repeat. So I got in touch with her, and she already had some beautiful glass flower stitch markers. And I said, would it be possible to combine some of those beautiful glass stitch markers with some that maybe just have some matching beads on them, but be able to provide a set of 22 that matched the yarn for the shawl by Noro? And she jumped on it right away. She's like, oh my God, that's so great. And so actually she designed specifically, exclusively for this, 5 different colorways of these stitch markers.
Oh,
and yeah, they're beautiful, and I can't wait. A lot of people who are doing the knit along have bought them. I actually collaborated with a few stores who are selling the yarn and the magazine and the stitch markers all as a kit, and it's beautiful all together. I'm just so thrilled.
That's so fantastic. So how do people get those kits? Like, do you sell the kits, or it's just through the store? Do they order the stitch markers through Anne? How does that work?
There are 2 different ways. Actually, if you go to my blog, lmbdesigns.com/blog, you'll see there are a few different entries for the knit along. And the very first one talks about where you can, actually the most recent one gets into more specifics about where you can buy the supplies. So there are some stores that are selling them all as a kit that you can purchase online. One of those is a little store in Virginia, kind of about an hour from Washington, D.C., Crazy for You, EWE. Ellen's the owner. She's lovely. She's selling the whole set if people want to purchase the whole set. You can also download the pattern individually on Ravelry. I should also note that if you buy the magazine, your retailer should be able to give you a coupon code that will allow you to also then get the pattern on Ravelry, so you can download it into your library for free. And you could buy the yarn separately from your local yarn store. So if you purchase the yarn from your local yarn store, you can then buy the stitch markers directly from Anne. And her email or her website is AnneTudor, TUDOR.com.
Excellent. Awesome. I think that is such a great idea, because you as a designer and the teacher have a problem, and then you figured out the solution for your students or for your even readers of the magazine. You know what I mean?
Right.
For the people who are going to be designing. Because what you said about 22 stitch markers, yeah, most stitch markers come in packs of like 5 or 6.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I love that it also has like the big ones, so you can mark the big things you need to know, and then the little ones, because that's
right.
I end up with, when I knit lace shawls, like pulling together like 10 stitch markers that don't match.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to remember, what does a stitch marker mean? Does this mean I do this? Does this mean I do this? I don't really remember. I don't know.
Right.
So it's so great that you guys came up with a solution.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it that way, because also I was trying to come up with a way to make the knit along more of an event and also a collaboration, and bring other people and Starship members and other people in the business that I work with kind of into that with me. And yeah, to your point about, mismatched stitch markers. I mean, I always look at my stitch markers as jewelry for my knitting, you want it to match what you're making, because it's really pretty.
Yeah.
And so that's why I thought she ended up doing 5 different colorways to go with. I think there are maybe 10 different colorways of yarn, but they can be mixed and matched, and they're beautiful. So.
I love it. That's so cool. And I like what you said. So, I was seeing it as a solution to a problem, but you were looking at it from the perspective, it sounds like, of you got a pattern in a magazine and you want to celebrate it. And you also want to do something with your knitters to like bring all the knitters of that pattern together in the knit along. Yes. And then you wondered, how do I get more people involved in this? And that is a marketing problem everybody has. And every kind of product maker, every kind of creative is saying, I want to launch this thing, but how do I tell more people? And one of the best and easiest ways is to collaborate with other business owners who have their own totally different followings and invite them to take part in something with you. So whether it's like a giveaway or it's a kit you put together, a lot of, and all of our examples are in the knitting world, but people do this outside the knitting world altogether all the time too. A lot of people have found a much bigger audience by putting together a kit that includes things from totally different makers. So instead of you
Right.
always trying to build your just talk to your audience, going and talking to other people's audiences, like these yarn stores now are all promoting you and your knit along, and
Exactly.
Anne is promoting you and your knit along. So the fact that you found partners in promotion it just makes your job easier, and it helps you reach more people.
Right, yeah. I love collaborating. It makes it more of an exciting event. And to your point, yes, I have now all these other partners who are invested because they have their products and their own lists. And so, yeah, I have quite a few yarn stores who partnered with me with this. And if you're local to New Jersey, I don't know how many of your listeners are, there's a store called The Yarn Attic in Hillsborough, New Jersey, and she's carrying the yarn in the magazine, and I'm also going to be doing an exclusive class with her at the start of the Knit Along. I'm doing a 2-series class on knitting the shawl, and I'll be doing some more classes with her later, so that's great too, because it gives me an opportunity to teach her her customers and get to know who shops at her store. So that'll be exciting to do.
That's so fantastic. And, that's something that yarn stores ask me about when I teach at TNNA, which is the trade show for the needle arts. And the classes are often attended by yarn store owners. And they all want to know, how do they get more people to their classes and get more people in their shop? And I tell them, you have to collaborate with the teachers. Like every class is a collaboration between the teacher and the person who's having the teacher there. You guys both need to be talking to your own people about it, to invite them. And then when they have a teacher like you who's creating a whole online event with a knit along and is bringing in other people like Anne, that makes their job easier. But like, it's their job to go find people who are willing to do that.
Right.
and not just like expect that everyone is going to have it together and do that. And obviously for every class you can't create a big online knit along, but you can, they can make sure to hire the kind of people who are going to do that. So I just wanted to point this out for everybody who's listening. Finding partners in your promotion of your things, bringing other people who are going to be as invested in as you are. And in Lisa's case, I mean, you aren't even, like, Noro's selling the pattern. It's in a magazine, right? And you're not selling the stitch markers, and you're not even selling the yarn, but you're connecting people who are each going to sell their own products by partnering with you. And that is a way of looking at how you can benefit everybody in your community and everybody who will be a future collaborator with you. Right.
And 2 points related to that, actually. I mean, I know people say to me, well, what are you getting out of this? Well, I'm gaining, I'm teaching the blog each week. I'm doing a tutorial on how to do the next part of the pattern, and it'll be links to videos. And so this kind of will now expand my audience base when I launch online classes, which I'm hoping to do really soon. And I wanted to go back to another point you made, and this is a good point for everyone. So being a partner as a teacher in a store, not only do I partner with them in terms of, marketing and getting the word out there, but I partner with them in terms of even the content development. I feel it's really important. I took the time and went to the store and said, so, what are your customers like? What type of class do you think they're like? What level are they? So that I could, even if needed, create a completely new class, which the shawl class kind of is because it hasn't been developed yet. Specific to those customers. And again, it's all about making that connection with the store owner, making the connection with my collaborators, making the connection with whoever wants to participate in the knit along. And everybody's so excited to get started on it. It's still a couple, by the time this airs, it's probably starting next week. But this has been in the planning stage for quite a few months, so we're all excited to get going on it.
Yeah, so I want to point that out, too, for listeners, is that it's easy when you see someone else's big launch or big promotion or big successful knit-along or whatever it is that you're seeing from the outside. It's easy to think that it all came together and they just said, hey, guys, I'm doing this thing. But in fact, often when you're working, especially when you're working with collaborators, things are in process for so much longer behind the scenes. And a successful launch often starts being planned and things being gathered months in advance. So and it's fine to do something last minute. I do last minute things all the time. I decided to do month of Biz Love a week before it all started, which was crazy because it was a 30-day thing. But know that when you see someone else's thing do awesome or be really big or have a lot of moving parts, that they've been working on it for a long time. So, and like Lisa and Anne reached out to me about us talking about this, I don't know, more than a month ago.
Yeah.
And so,
a while ago.
Yeah, even being on podcasts takes
Right.
months of time. And this will air in like, I think another week from when we're recording it. So,
Right. Yeah. And I mean, depending on what you're launching, you know, the magazine actually and the pattern came out in May.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the decision about the launch was two things. One was my schedule, because I have a big project, a consulting project I'm working on right now, and just couldn't wrap my head around doing 4 blog posts and promotion and all of that right away. But then we also realized, you mentioned TNNA, which is a big trade show. That happened at the end of June, and so we wanted local yarn stores to come see the yarn, which is brand new. I did a Meet the Designer event in the booth, so this was a way I could connect with the yarn stores and say, hey, I'm doing this knit along, you know, you're here at the show, buy the yarn now, place your order for the stitch markers now so that your customers will have it in time. So we wanted to give the retailers time to, you know, get everything in stock too, and have time for them to promote it and get their customer base excited. So it feels to me like, okay, I'm ready for this already. Let's go. But, you know, yes, there are a lot of working parts. And my collaborators, everyone has been great. Everyone has been lovely. And it's been fun already, and we haven't even started.
Oh, I love it. That's so great. So in a minute, you have something free that people can get. But before that, I'm going to ask a question I always ask, which is, what are you enthusiastic about right now?
Well, in addition to the knit along, I'm in the process of creating some online classes, which I'm really excited about. I currently teach probably on average about 4 classes a week between different locations. I have done some live webinars that I'm turning into some online classes, but I really wanted to find a way that I could reach more people virtually. And so, of course, online classes is one of them. I'm also trying to figure out all this new video technology and see if there's a way I can teach face-to-face with my students via, you know, Skype, Google Hangouts, all that fun stuff. So just also finding a way to use technology to reach people who aren't physically in my location, because I really feel like I'm more of a teacher, and I enjoy teaching. And whether it's knit, whether it's crochet, which is fairly new to me, but I'm doing more of, and I'm excited to do more of. So it's classes, it's getting into the crochet side of things. So those of you who crochet, I'll have some things for you coming soon.
I love that. That's so great. So I do want to be clear, because we mentioned it along a couple times, and there's a lot of listeners who aren't knitters, but let's like lay out when the knit along begins and what it is, and like then how you're inviting people to participate.
Right. So a knit along is where everyone works on the same project at the same time wherever you are in the world. And some designers use it as a way, some designers will do a mystery knit along where they've created a new pattern, and each week they'll release the next section of the pattern. So the knitters actually don't know what they're making when they first start. But this knit along is, there is a pattern, so you know what you're making. And so I will post on my blog each week kind of tutorials and information about each section. So over the course of 4 weeks, I'll take you from the cast on of the shawl through how to read a lace chart, how to use stitch markers, how to do the slip to knit pass slip stitch over decrease, short row shaping because it's a crescent shawl, and then various bind offs. We're going to have giveaways every week. I'm going to draw names for free stitch markers, free yarn, free patterns. I think at the end of it, we're going to have a grand prize for people who post. And so how this is actually held is I have blog posts on my blog, and then I also have a Ravelry group where I'm cross-posting information on, hey, the next blog post's up, you know, go check it out. So people can ask questions both through my blog and through Ravelry, interact with each other. Everyone can post pictures, show what they're making. And so it's kind of creating a community of people all making the same thing at the same time and sharing their experiences and getting help making it at the same time.
Yes, I love that. And knit-alongs are so much fun. And actually all kinds of crafts along. Like I've been stitching a English paper piece hand-stitched quilt and just looking at that hashtag on Instagram and like following along with the other people who are making progress as I'm making progress. So, but in knitting, I've knit a couple things along with a knit along, and it is always just, I go so much faster when I have other people to share it with, and it's much less lonely. It's much less like random. And then you have all this extra educational stuff. So it's great. If you get stuck at any point, you actually have the designer right there to answer it for you, and other people who are working on it that might explain it in a way that makes even more sense.
Right.
So
right.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you said you had something to give to listeners. So tell us what that is.
Yes. So I have created a yarn substitution guide for both knitters and crocheters, which will be a handy reference if you ever get a pattern and the yarn is either out of stock or it's not sold anymore, you prefer to use another yarn. This guide talks about how you choose a comparable yarn by weight, by fiber content, by color, and all the things you need to think about. So I wanted to offer this free for your listeners. And how you can receive your guide is if you text the word enthusiasm to 44222. And so you'll get a text message back asking for your email address. You just put that in, and then you'll get an email with a downloadable guide. This will also sign you up for my newsletter, and I want to point out that at any time you can go in and update your email preferences. I send a newsletter out once a week, and you'll only get a newsletter when there's information that you want to receive, whether it's patterns or knit-alongs or classes or fiber adventure tours.
Awesome. Yes, and fiber adventure tours, I think, is just a fantastic thing. Lisa takes you to cool places, events, fiber festivals, and if you are new to that, she walks you around and you meet some of the vendors, and she's planned events. It's a super awesome thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I do an annual trip to the Rhinebeck Sheep and Wool Festival, and I've just started another one in the spring where we do a fiber tour to farms in upstate New York, and it also happens to be the time of year when there are baby lambs and all kinds of baby animals, and they're usually also we visit a sugar house where they're tapping the trees and making maple sugar, maple syrup. It's all kinds of good fun.
That's awesome. So you get that by texting enthusiasm to 44222.
Yeah.
3 twos.
44222. Yeah.
Excellent. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to have links to everything we talked about in the show notes, which you'll find at tarswiger.com/podcast118. And have a link there for signing up for the knit along so that you can get your pattern, get your yarn, and get your stitch markers and get started, because it's going to start, I think, a week after this podcast episode comes out.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Lisa.
Yay.
I appreciate
it.
Thanks so much for watching. You can get weekly lessons like this in your inbox, along with access to worksheets and checklists and transcripts from all the podcast episodes when you sign up below. You can also subscribe on YouTube, and YouTube will notify you when there's a new video. And you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram. If you do, be sure to say hello or leave a comment below the video to let me know you're there. Thank you so much for watching, and have a very enthusiastic day.